Good morning and welcome to today's Digital Media Sync. I am broadcasting from Known Co-working at 139 Orange Street in New Haven, Connecticut. Known Co-working is open for co-working, so please visit the website at nhbknown.com and you can see all of the um, offerings, which is a daily pass, or if you're looking for a dedicated desk or office. So give us a look at that. And I see that there's comments already, so I'm hoping that people are saying good morning. Yes, Rebecca is saying good morning, and Lance is saying good morning. So hello, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about how to run a successful virtual event. And I think probably in the past several years, I could count on one hand, maybe two on a good year, how many actual virtual events that I have attended. Whereas in the past several months, I can count on all my fingers and toes twice or three times. So there's a lot of virtual events going on, and that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of planning behind it. So I wanted to take a few weeks out of this month and actually talk about planning and running a virtual event. I know I have colleagues that are running virtual events. Many of them are ongoing. So like Digital Media Sync used to be a in-person event where we could communicate with each other in person and looking across the table from each other, asking questions, having discussions, that sort of thing. And now we've brought it online to a virtual event. The first iteration of the virtual event of Digital Media Sync was actually a Zoom call. So there was just several of us that were communicating with each other on Zoom, and now we are broadcasting from a tool called StreamYard, and we are on Facebook and YouTube, and we have the ability to also be on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So there are a lot of things to take into consideration, and with some really good planning, we can do this. All right, so let me get to the presentation part of it. Okay, so we already went through, these days most events are still virtual, and they more likely continue to be. A lot of big conferences, even concerts, big and small, are being hosted online, and there's a lot of different ways that people are utilizing that space. So the very first thing to do is to create a plan, and I'm always saying this, no matter what topic we're talking about or the larger aspect, I'm always saying create a plan. So the things to think about when we're creating this type of plan is, number one, establishing a format, determining a platform, defining what the access is. And I'm going to go through each one of these in a lot more depth. Pick a time. That's a big thing. That's always a big thing for me and for business colleagues. When are we going to actually do this? Collect data, which sounds like a really weird thing to say, but when you're registering people, a lot of what you're doing is collecting data. Oopsies, there we go. Document a promotion plan. Oftentimes people just throw events out there, and sometimes they have promotion plans and sometimes they don't. Pick your partners or go it alone. Decide if people will have access to the event once it's over. Revisit your data, and don't forget to say thank you after your event. So I'm going to go through each one of these, and I'm probably, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make that a lot bigger. This looks very, very small right now. The other thing that's going to happen is I'm actually going to have this presentation available after this particular event that I'm running right now. So you can take notes, or you can just wait until I put this up on the known website. Okay, so establishing a format. Even with Digital Media Sync, I try to think about what the format is that I'm going to utilize. So like today, I'm doing a straight up presentation. It's just me and my Google Slides, and I am projecting what I want to convey. Other times we've had discussions. So there's been a back and forth between my guest, or guest plural. I haven't had guest plural yet, but I plan to. And so having a dialogue or discussion where there's input from more than one of the experts that I'm bringing on. An interview. And an interview can be one-on-one, or it could be a panel where, again, I'm bringing on more than one guest. It could be a mixed bag of things. I could be starting out with a discussion or an interview, and then getting into a greater discussion, and then having a Q&A. And that's another question too, is are you going to have a Q&A, and how much time are you going to allot for that? So oftentimes, if I'm doing a 60-minute presentation, I'll be doing 40 minutes of the presentation and then a 20-minute Q&A. Or if I'm doing 90 minutes, I'll do 60 minutes and 30. So it's usually 3/4 to 1/4, or 2/3 to 1/3, where you have a Q&A. And also establishing, if you're doing something like in a Zoom room, so that you don't get interrupted, ask that questions be asked later, or ask people to put the questions in the chat. And then the other question is, there's going to be networking involved. So are you going to provide time for people to talk to each other? Sometimes that's not quite available. So if you're doing a live stream, say on Facebook or YouTube, it's going to be a little difficult to be doing that networking unless you're having a chat off to the side. But if you're doing Zoom, you may say, okay, the first 15 minutes, let people kind of chat with each other and have a conversation, exchange numbers or virtual cards of some sort, and then come back. You want to be able to bring that presentation back into focus, and then continue with the rest of that. Okay, so that's how we're establishing a format. Okay, and determining your platforms is very important. So again, right now I'm live streaming, so I'm utilizing a couple of different social platforms. And I'm using a very specific tool in order to stream on these multiple platforms. Social platforms have been very helpful for businesses, for artists, for musicians, in order to get what they're doing out into the world. You can have closed platform, so things like Zoom, Hivebright, IBM Cloud. There's another one that I've just been starting to work with. One is called Webinar Ninja, and then the other one is Teachable. And that's something to think about too, because classes or seminars are events. They're planned, they're specific. So a platform like Teachable and other teaching platforms really should be considered in the same vein as other platforms. And then if we're utilizing multiple streams, there's lots of different ways to do that: StreamYard, Streamio, Restream, Vimeo, and Crowdcast. So these are all things that, again, once I put this up, you can take a look at what these platforms look like and do. And over the next couple of weeks, I'm actually going to be diving into the technology of events a little bit more, but this is just really thinking about what this planning looks like and what you want to think about when you're doing events. All right, so the other thing is defining access. Is this going to be a free event? Is there a cost attached to it, and what is that cost? And if there is a cost, is there going to be an early bird special discount or some other special discount? Student discount, for example. So I know that there's still a lot of online entrepreneur events or business events, classes, seminars, and so there would be one pricing for a business owner or for employees, and then another pricing for students or some other discount that's going on. And then is there tiered entry with special access? So what that means is if you have an event where you get a VIP access, that's something that is possible in an online event. So things can be opened or closed to the public and then opened up for special occasions, so to speak. So is there a networking that's closed to everybody that has not paid that higher tier pricing? These are all, again, things to think about when you're running this event. And no matter how big or small the event is, it's all. I'm seeing more people saying good morning, so I'm super excited. So I want to say good morning to Zep and to Randy, and everybody's saying good morning to everyone. So that's wonderful because it's a cloudy morning, and yeah, there it is. All right, so I'm going back to the presentation. So I want to discuss access from another aspect as well, and I have to give a shout out, she's probably not watching because she's probably working, but Sharon Rosenblatt, she has taught me a lot about different aspects of online accessibility. So thinking about things like, do the platforms provide for, and are you going to remember to turn on closed captioning? Visuals that are easy to see and fonts that are easy to read. So the least readable colors to use, I believe, are yellow and blue. And I can never remember which order those are in, but those are not easy. So actually what I'm doing with this presentation is I'm making it very easy, and I'm using basic black and white, not a lot of visuals in this particular case. And it's a little bit gray and white, but having that that good contrast is really very helpful. And I'm talking. So the other thing that you might want to do is provide documents in advance to those who are going to need to use a reader or have any other kind of special considerations. So, and one of the things to do is to read up on respectability.org. They provide a lot of documentation on how to prepare online events to make it accessible to everyone. So if you're thinking about, who your audience is, and if your audience is a wide-ranging audience, you want to make sure that you have this available. Okay, here's the big one right here, picking a time. And I've done this a few times, and I know all of you who have been with me through Digital Media Sync through the years, whether it's been a virtual event or not, the biggest issue has been picking a time. And we've pretty much done a really good job of settling in on 8:30 in the morning, between 8:30 and 9. There's been a few times where we've used the 9 o'clock slot. But the thing is that we remember is that it's consistent. So if you have an event that's going week over week or month over month or a quarter or that sort of thing, thinking about consistency is really important. So I pulled this from one of my resources. I couldn't remember if it was Hootsuite blog or an Eventbrite bot. But basically it's saying when picking a time and date, think about the day-to-day activities of your audience. So if you're appealing to a 9-to-5 crowd, Monday is probably not going to work. I'm trying to think of any time that I've actually been to an event on a Monday. Tuesday morning, though, seems to be working pretty good. Later in the week, when somebody's needing a mental break from their workload, much better. Lunchtime is another one, and especially when people are working from home and doing virtual events now, people usually can grab their lunches and then go ahead and sit through a seminar, webinar, networking event, that sort of thing. 4 o'clock hour between 4 and 7. If you're thinking about a networking event, I know there's been a lot of business and personal happy hours, so to speak, and so those can be very loose happy hours, or those can be the kind of happy hours that have a networking component or a little bit of a business component attached to it. And then we're also remembering to keep time zones in mind too. And Zeph, I know that that's something that you definitely do because if you know people around the world are going to be watching, or people on the West Coast, middle of the country, anywhere, you want to think about that as well. So if you're based on the East Coast, starting an online event at 9 a.m. will most likely be too early for 10 days on the West Coast. Apparently, I wasn't very worried about that. Maybe as this gets larger, I'm going to be thinking about that type of situation. But I'm also keeping in mind the fact that while this is live streaming, it's also recording. And we are also making this available later in the day and ongoing by putting it on the Known website and giving it a special little page. So if anybody has questions, I've been going back and forth. Yeah, I'm going to give my resources out as well, Rebecca. There's actually a ton of really good resources as far as how to run an event and how to have a checklist available to you to go through all the things, because we've only gone through half of the components right now and not in very great detail. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything that they'd like me to kind of expound upon, please go ahead and put that in the chat, and I will be true to what I am suggesting and recommending right now and handle the questions at the end. We'll see how that goes. So there's actually 2 of these, but I'm going to keep going. The big thing is to promote. So promote early, promote often, because according to Adobe, registrations actually tend to spike 2 to 3 weeks before an event. And I'm going to back up on that, because what this is saying is 2 to 3 weeks before a large event. I've been running smaller events and helping people run smaller events where it's been about 2 to 3 weeks that we're promoting the event, or we don't want to go 1 week before an event. That's really very stressful for everybody involved. So it's really a good idea to either ramp up or start that time. And the 3 things to remember about this as well is promotion should be constant and consistent. And it also should be collaborative. So one of the components that is lost somewhere in this presentation is actually deciding whether or not you are going to have other people involved on camera in your event with you. So does that mean you are the sole presenter? Are you the host? And by host, that could mean several things. That could be host and you're the one who's running the show and the pacing but you're also the one contributing a good portion of what is going on. So you'll come in, you'll talk about the first topic of the day or the hour, you'll back up a little bit, the guest will come on, do their talking, and then you'll come back in. If it's a discussion, so the back and forth, so to speak, if there's many guests. So when you're thinking about guests, you're thinking about them from the perspective of what do they bring to this particular event? What's their expertise? What's their silo? What are they doing in that capacity? But you're also thinking about, quite truthfully, who can they bring to the event as well? So if you are targeting a large audience with many, many segments, you want to think about who can bring each of these segments in to make this a more robust event, more exciting, and more productive. And often in many cases, it also means it's talking about it from the perspective of how is this going to make money as well. So that's something to think about, that type of promotion. I missed one slide. So this is something that's really interesting to think about as well. I didn't do this on purpose, I swear. So prepare for technical difficulties. And technical difficulties can mean anything from I misplaced a slide somewhere to, oh no, the feed just dropped. So one of the things to do is just recognize that humans are fallible and oh yeah, I am going to be, okay. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. So just understanding that one of the things that's going to happen is you're going to run into difficulties. And it happens. So the first thing to do is actually, when you're going through your planning, plan out what you're actually going to do if there is a technical difficulty. And sometimes it means also letting other people know, hey, if the Zoom drops out, just come back in with your password. I'll keep an eye out for you, and I'll bring you back into the Zoom. Make sure that wherever you're going to be presenting, because it could be in your home, it could be in an office, it could be somewhere that you've never presented online before and you're not sure about the capabilities, you want to be able to test things out beforehand. I know one of the things that I do, especially when I have guests, but even on an everyday basis, I will come in to where I'm going to be presenting from. I'll take a look around. I'll see what the lighting is like. I'll see what's behind me. I'll see what the internet connection is like, making sure everything is fine there, that everything is up and running. And I usually come in 15 minutes before and get all of this done. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, anything like that. The other thing too is I want to make, if I have guests, whether one or multiple, again, I want to make sure that they are comfortable. So I give them that time as well. They want to come in, they want to see what they look like on camera, make sure that they're centered, make sure that they feel like, they look presentable and ready and fresh and have their coffee, and that they can see how we're going to be interacting on camera, because it's very different from how we interact in person. If we're interacting in person, we're looking at each other, we're making eye contact. There's all sorts of visual cues. I'm using my hands. So there's all these things that we have to think about. If that person has a presentation, if I have a presentation, I want to make sure that that presentation is up, that it looks good, it can be seen. So a little bit earlier, I had my presentation up like so. So I was up larger than my presentation. And now you can see the presentation, what's written on that particular presentation. I want to go back and forth with that. So if I had another person on with me, which has often been the case, I want to be able to share the screen in a way that shows who has the voice at that time. So if we're having a discussion, we're splitting the screen evenly. If somebody is making a point or has the floor, so to speak, I want to give them a greater portion of that screen to show that what they're saying is really important, and please focus on what they are saying. And if I have a panel, I want to have the capability in order to give each of the people on the panel, again, the focus that they deserve. So these are things to think about ahead of time. You don't want to be doing it on the fly, for sure. Another example is, in this particular case, I have the ability to show banners. So if you can see the bottom of my screen, it says, you know, got a question for us, leave a comment. So I'm inviting people into the conversation with me in the way that I can do that. And then the other thing that I'm doing too is I'm also advertising as well. So there's a ticker at the bottom that says find out more at known.live/digital media sync. So if you go to the nhbknown.com page, I'm inviting you to go to known.live/digital media sync to see this and to see other digital media sync videos as well that I've done. So these are all things that that we are thinking about. So I want to pop back over because there were many slides, and I think I just jumped over one slide to get to the other slide. So I'm going to back everything up. Okay, so this particular slide I was going to do next week, but if we are ready to jump into this as well, I can do more details later on, because there's a lot to really go through, and one of them is definitely what are you doing to promote your event. So that is definitely going to be something that we talk about later on in the month. So we talked about the fact that you need to document your promotion plan. And again, that's something that we're going to talk about next week, promoting. And then picking your partners or going it alone. Again, we've talked a little bit about that. Are you going to have other people on screen with you? What are their roles, really? And define what those roles are. Way ahead of time. So if somebody's going to be an interviewer or if somebody is going to be a guest on a panel, let them understand what it is that they're actually going to be doing. Let them prepare themselves. Give them a week or two to do that, or even longer. And the other thing too is it's perfectly fine also to kind of run through what you're going to be doing. The other question, will people still have access to the event once it's over? And there's a lot of different ways that people can have access to the event, whether it's open or closed. So in this case, right now, any of the digital media sync seminars and discussions that we are having online here on Facebook Live or on YouTube are completely free. Once I'm done with this, I take the recording, I put it up on the nhbknown.com website. I make sure that people know that it's available there, as well as still available on Facebook Live. I keep that open, and also available on YouTube. I keep that open. But at some point, we could take all of this and put it behind a paywall. and say, okay, this along with other materials are available if you become an online member, so to speak. So that's one thing to think about. There are maybe other materials that you want to make available as well. So as well as this video being available and open to all the time, I had said earlier that I'm going to make this presentation and the resources from this presentation available as well. So be very forthcoming as to what is available and how it is available and what format. We didn't talk about gathering data very much, so I'm going to do that right now. So oftentimes when people register, and I know many of us have registered for events, whether they be online or in person, and registrations can be very, very simple. What's your name, first name, last name, what's your email address, what's your phone number perhaps. In-person events, my favorite thing about in-person events was if there was going to be food available, they would ask you if you had what you would want for the food, and if you had anything special that you needed from a food perspective. So that was always fun. But really thinking about setting expectations and whether or not how much you are going to let people decide what's going to happen during the presentation. So oftentimes asking in various ways what the expectations are when people are attending an event, so to speak. So if this is a business event, if it's a webinar of some sort, asking people what their trouble spots are, where they're thinking they need more information, more education, more help, and getting a sense of what that looks like, a baseline in the very beginning of the event is super helpful. So that can either be done in the very beginning of registration. So once you get the name and the email address, having one or two very simple questions, because oftentimes when people register, they either just want to have as few slots to fill out as possible, or there's an autofill form and they just click that and then they're on their way. But asking a couple of very simple questions in the beginning helps kind of set a baseline for what everybody's expectations are. You're going to be in the promotion plan, there's definitely going to be additional communication going on amongst you and your attendees. So if you have their information, you want to be talking about you want to be talking about, again, what they're looking for. So throughout, sending out an email to their email address and saying, hey, we're really excited. This is what the calendar is going to look like, or that particular day is going to look like, the schedule. Have a couple of questions for you. What are you expecting from this perspective or that perspective? And give them some choices, maybe, like a menu. So doing that throughout, again, kind of helps build out and testing out what you're doing for that particular event. And then what happens is the event happens, you have that communication, and then at the end of the event, what you want to be doing is revisiting that data. So that data is how many actual attendees there were, how many happy attendees there were their products or services being announced or sold or talked about? Is there discussions? Are there new relationships that are built out of this? This is all really, really good data to not only take into your next event, but your ongoing communications with the attendees. And I know it sounds silly to say this, but a lot of times this is either not done or not done as enthusiastically, which is saying thank you. And what I mean by that, it's like, yes, of course, at the end of a presentation or an event of some sort, people will say thank you for coming, da da da. But a real thank you really kind of wraps up what that particular event meant to everybody who was in the room. So when you're doing a thank you, you want to, of course, thank any of the people that were collaborators, partners, sponsors on the panel. And a thank you in this case really means that you acknowledge what they actually provided for that event. So if somebody on the panel or each of the people on the panel, they imparted some sort of wisdom or some sort of piece of education or humor or whatever it was, acknowledge the exact thing that came out of that person on that panel or that guest or the interviewee. So really, that's what a real thank you is. Thank the attendees from the perspective of, giving up their time and making sure that they got what they wanted out of that time that they were given. And that, again, goes back to providing data as well. So just something to really think about from that perspective. So I'm gonna jump back and down to my resources, because a lot of my resources come from the tools that I use, or tools that are close to the tools that I use. So Hootsuite had a super good blog called How to Host a Successful Virtual Event, Tips and Best Practices. In this particular blog, they provided not only tips, but what types of events look like. So again, this is something that's going to be provided once I get the presentation up. Eventbrite and Meetup are actually two of the resources that I utilize in order to register people for events and track the registrations. And they also provide a lot of really good tips and tricks to hosting a successful online event and promoting it as well. And they provide a lot of resources in order to do that. So they both provide the availability to send out emails, to have surveys available, to communicate with potential attendees and attendees. So that's super helpful. And then another blog that I used was Marketo, and Marketo, again, was it was interesting to see how larger virtual events are run, because we all want to have super large, virtual events at some point. Because this is, again, it could be part of your marketing, part of the sales funnel, part of networking, and putting more people into your pipeline. It's just one of the many ways. So it's a really good idea to pull off a wonderful, wonderful event. All right, I am going to take a breath because I've been talking for definitely 41 minutes, straight up 41 minutes. I had no guests today. I'm gonna have a cup of coffee, so everybody Want to take a sip of coffee with me? Cheers. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and post those in the comment section of whatever platform you're on. I can see most people are on the Facebook Live platform. I said I was going to stop talking and I haven't. But yeah, so post questions or comments or say hi or tell me how your day is going, what the weather is like out there in TV land. So I'm actually going to close things up. And again, I am going to reiterate. I'm looking at my phone right now to make sure that I don't have any other comments. So just to reiterate, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and post them down below. Even if you are watching this later in the day or week or month or next year, go ahead and comment on. Okay, Lance has a question. How long do you think virtual meetings would be the preferred way to meet? And if social distancing relaxes, will virtual be relevant? Oh yeah, virtual will definitely be relevant. I think more so, there's already conferences around the world actually right now in many sectors that are saying that in 2021 and 2022 that at least a portion of conferences are going to be virtual. And I think also people are going to get used to or have already gotten used to utilizing platforms like Facebook Live and like YouTube, and also, Vimeo and other platforms in order to bring people together from other areas. I'm not sure travel is going to be comfortable, not just from the perspective of a pandemic or a virus going around all over the place, but also from the perspective of it's a lot less costly to do a virtual event. You have access to more people. You have more time. If you think into consideration, travel time, time that may seem wasted or money that may seem wasted to organizations, no matter what the size is, they're going to look at ways to utilize virtual events. So I would say while people are getting into more live events and in-person events, I think there's still going to be a greater percentage of events that are going to stay virtual, just by virtue of the fact that they can. And they don't have to take into consideration cost. And if anybody who's out in the audience wants to point me into a direction that either makes my point or breaks my point, it'd be interesting. I've been looking at articles in business magazines as well that are talking about the fact that businesses are definitely going to weigh what a virtual event holistically looks like and what an in-person event holistically would look like, and maybe pull back on the in-person events, or at least the number of in-person events. So while I think, and I've been reading that they're not necessarily going to pull back on all in-person events, you definitely need to have those. that there's going to be more consideration for virtual events. And there are a ton of tools out there that can facilitate that. And there's businesses and organizations that are built around, currently built around facilitating online events, including, sending materials or sending care packages, so to speak, out ahead of virtual events and after virtual events as well. So it's really interesting. That's a good question. I hope I answered it. Okay, so I think this wraps up today. Next week, we're going to be talking about promoting virtual events and what that looks like and what that kind of checklist looks like. I'm going to sign off in a couple of minutes, so I just want to say thank you to everybody who has attended my virtual event. Hopefully, it was informative and educational, and maybe somewhat entertaining. I know I can get a little dry sometimes. Oh, Reddy says, have a great day. And Rebecca says, thank you. Thank you. You have a great day. Hope you have a great day. This is definitely one of the things I have to say when we're all together in person or we're all together in a Zoom room or that sort of thing. I feel like I have a lot more camaraderie available and bantering and back and forth and that sort of thing, which I kind of miss. But I also, really love what I'm doing. So I'm going to continue to do it this way, and I'm going to continue to have guests. So if you want to be a guest, if there's a topic that you're interested in, please let me know. We still have the Digital Media Sync group up on Facebook, so it's just called Digital Media Sync group. We have the Digital Media Sync Facebook page as well. We also have the Known Co-working Facebook page, and you can definitely leave comments on this video or leave comments anywhere. We have the Known community. So when you become a Known member at any level, you definitely can join the Known community, or you can be a friend of Known and join the Known community. So I don't know if everybody who's on there is part of the Known community Facebook group, but if you are not, give me a little ping and I will bring you into the group as well, and we can have discussions there. The other thing to take a look at as well, again, is if you go to nhbknown.com, the co-working options are up on the home page. So dedicated desk or office, or come in for a day. When you come in for a day, you also get a lunch, either at G Cafe or at Takeaway. So that's pretty exciting. I love that option. Also, when you go to the nhbknown.com website, you can see this video. We'll put this video up in just a few moments, and I will put the presentation up as well in the correct order. But also see what else is going on. We have 3 online offerings right now. So we have Pivot Talk, and you can take a look at the Pivot Talks that we've already run live and have recorded. So go to that. Yeah, I'm super happy about well, both G Cafe and Takeaway. So yay Takeaway. Yeah, there's Pivot Talk, there's Known Live. We've had some great guests for both Pivot Talk. We've already talked to the owners of Escape Room and how they had to pivot into an online offering, online escape room, which the known staff has actually tried out, and it was so much fun. Known Live, we've talked to artist Raheem Nelson to take a look at that conversation. That was an amazing conversation about what he's been doing from an artist perspective in this particular time. Megan Wooden, she's an author. We've talked to her about her writing process. So we've talked to artists and writers and business owners. And then, of course, we have Digital Media Sync, which is what we're doing right now. So just wanted to thank everybody and tell you all have a great day.